Welcome everyone to my channel, Beth Bell Live. I am so happy to have you here each week on Sunday at 11:11 Pacific time. So we just had daylight savings and we all flipped our clocks. So hopefully you're all on with me live at the right time. I know I had to do a little bit of adjustment in my mind because I'm actually in Arizona. So the show is going to be on the road for the next month, and I'm really excited to take you guys to some fun places. And today we also have a live studio audience here in Arizona. So we've got some dear friends of mine in the audience. So we're going to do the format just a little bit differently, but I'll explain that in a minute. On the show, we dive deep into matters of the heart. And so if you have a question, anything that makes your heart ache or makes your heart break, relationship related, please put them in the comments and the questions down below, because I'll answer them live and you'll get priority if you're here with us on live. Now, listen, if you're on replay, that's okay too. Just put it in the comments, or you can enter it to bethbell.me/question. And it's a little bit more private that way, but we always love to have you with us here engaged online. So please don't hesitate to write in the comments your question and we'll be sure to get to it today. Okay, so a lot of times I like to share something that's warmed my heart over the last week, and a story came to mind that I thought was, worth bringing forward. I do a fireside chat every week on Tuesdays. It's a group of key influencers in the healing and awakening space, and we gather around my fireplace, my fire pit, actually. We have some really incredible conscious conversation. And it's one conversation, and it's not like a cocktail party. It's like a, hey, let's round table something. And we got talking about places that we've traveled to or been to that had a big impact on our lives. And one of the stories that got shared as a result just has stuck with me all week long. And I want to share it with everyone because it's an interesting lens and perspective shift. So what came up was I was sharing a story about India, which I won't go into on the show right now, but it prompted another individual in the group who's from South Sudan to talk about a topic about how actually it was a friend of this person that said, I want to share how this person helped me realize that you don't ever have to wait in line. And in South Sudan, I guess there's very long lines for lots of things. In fact, he was sharing that just to get food, he would wait for hours some days. And so he was explaining that he doesn't actually wait for the food. So I was a little bit perplexed. I'm like, well, wait a minute. What do you mean? He's waiting in line, but he's not waiting in line? And so the friend went on to say how impactful his story was to her, that they are all being while they're waiting for the food. They don't see themselves as waiting in line. And the stories kind of kept unfolding. And I thought, wow, this is so similar to what I experience in Bali with the Balinese, and how they just have this tremendous amount of patience because they're just being in that moment. In every moment of now, they're just being. So even if they are waiting for something, their lens of perception isn't that they're waiting. Whereas I think the more Western mentality and mindset is, oh my gosh, like what time, how long, what's going on? I've got other things to do. And we miss out on being and being in that experience. And so I think yoga is definitely here as one of the modalities to help us and teach us how to be really present in our bodies and to not have that urgency of doing. So that story just stuck in my mind. And I thought, wow, this week I've really tried to focus back on being in my body, experiencing the feelings that come through, whatever it is that I'm doing, wherever it is that I go. So hopefully that warms your heart as well and helps you to shift a little bit of that perspective and that lens of, how we just get really in this hamster wheel sometimes in our Western way of living. Now, I would love to know what your status of the heart is. So if you're with us on live or on replay, give a little heart. Like, what color is your heart today? Put it in the comments. And if you have a little something you want to say about that, if it's orange or it's yellow or it's blue or it's purple, I'd love to hear what status your heart is in today. All right. As I mentioned, we have a live studio audience, and because they're intimate friends of mine, we decided that there was going to be a little bit more confidentiality. So we're going to do cards. They're all submitting some questions, and when the time is right, they'll bring up their cards, and we'll answer those questions. I'll start out with one that's pre-submitted though, just to kind of get us all in the flow. And this one I think came in last week and we didn't get to it. So I want to jump in on this one. How do you know when it's time to end a relationship? My boyfriend and I have agreed we're dating, but we don't connect as often as I would expect in a committed relationship. I wonder if we're really aligned in what dating means and if we have similar expectations. How do you approach a conversation to clarify the parameters and expectations in a relationship without it feeling overly formal or forcing an uncomfortable talk too soon? And if it turns out we want different things, how do you decide if the relationship is worth continuing or if it's time to move on? So there's a lot of really great questions all in this one question, and I'm going to dissect it a little bit. What I'm feeling for you is that there is a lack of communication on your part. You have all these questions in your mind. And I think oftentimes, especially if it's a newer relationship, we don't want to rock the boat. But I think the more we can speak our truth immediately to the people that we're dating and the people we're in relationship with of what we need, right? So maybe feel into, hey, if I need something different than what I'm getting, is there a reason why I'm not communicating what it is that I need and innately feel, deeply inside myself? And also ask the question, or is this just me being needy in a way that's maybe not necessary for the relationship? Now, I want to go back to one of the parts of the question, which is about, the definition of dating. I think men and women approach this very differently. So, dating, being in a committed relationship, having a long term committed relationship, there's a lot of different definitions. And I think the most important thing to do here is to have fun communicating about it. Like, we don't have to make this so heavy. We can laugh about it. Like, hey, well, what does dating mean to you? Like, what are we doing? Here's how I feel. And I think starting with how you feel will help bring them out. A lot of times we don't do that because we want to know, well, wait, where are they before we like expose ourselves? And if we can get past that initial, like, I don't want to be too vulnerable, or I don't want to say that I like you more than you like me. I mean, that's all like really relevant emotions to have, but get rid of it, move through it, ask them, share with them. I am feeling so excited. I'm making this up, but I am feeling so excited about our relationship. And I just feel like I want more. Where are you at with that? Right. So you kind of go step by step, hear what they have to say. If you don't detect like that there's excitement, then say exactly what you're feeling. Like, oh gosh, well, that's good for me to hear because I'm kind of feeling like maybe you're not in the same place as I am. Am I reading you right? Or am I overreacting to this? Right. So you kind of just keep coming back to how you feel and not necessarily calling them out on what they're saying, but just acknowledging like, hey, I heard you say this. And when you say that to me, it makes me feel this way. And when you start just using that, you'll start to feel that back and forth, back and forth. And if that partner clams up and can't have any conversation about your relationship, then I think you need to dig a little bit deeper with them. Like, hey, I recognize that, your body language or, the way that you just said that am I making you feel uncomfortable? Because that's not my goal. My goal is just to really open this up. And then you have to kind of start to read, not from a judgment place, but from a soft hearted place. Like, are they ready to be in a relationship with me? Am I ready to be in relationship with them? Because if I'm not able to say those things and I'm not able to have those conversations, then I think it's a deeper reflection of what's holding me back. What is it that I'm fearing? Is it that I don't want to experience a situation where maybe I'm feeling something more than they are? But wouldn't you want to know that right now? As opposed to make up the fantasies or the ideas or talk to our girlfriends or our boyfriends, not boyfriends, but a lot of times women talk to each other very freely. But why don't we just take that same approach and talk to our loved ones, the people we're dating, our lovers, in the same way and with that same level of honesty, openness, and transparency? Because that's what builds the strong foundation. So I think you're on the right track by asking all these questions, but I think you just want to like go into why am I not already doing this? And you're asking it, and he said, um, how do I approach the conversation to clarify the parameters and expectations? And I think I've just touched on that. I also think that, get into the definition, like, especially today. Do you want to be dating multiple people at the same time? Like, these are some basic questions. Oh, no. Okay. Well, what kind of relationship do you think, especially if it's long distance? What kind of relationship do you feel is the healthiest for you? Or, at what point is something too much for you or something too less for you? Because oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes the women need a little bit more, want a little bit more communication, because we're oftentimes a little bit more of the talkers. We're more often to express emotions, whereas men are kind of black and white, and they're like, yeah, okay, well, I don't really need all that extra stuff. So find out and tell them. If you're the woman and you need more, tell them and see what the reaction is, because they might just not have awareness around what it is that you need. And if you've already gone for a little while, which is what I'm feeling, without sharing what you need, then he thinks you're totally fine with exactly how it is. So how would he know any different? I think the other thing sometimes is we think that men can read our minds, and they can't. Unfortunately, as close as we can be sometimes to people, they oftentimes cannot get the nuances of our emotions inside. So hopefully that's helpful. Now, I think that there's also one other thing here to this question. And if it turns out we want different things, how do you decide if the relationship is worth continuing or if it's time to move on? And I think that's a very, very deep question for you, and for you to ask your heart when you're in the moment, and when you're in the moment with the person. Because when we leave that moment, when we leave the face to face and we leave like the conversation, then what happens for you and what happens for them is the mind gets in the way, and the mind starts churning and thinking about da 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 da. And so I think try to stay out of that mind part of it and try to stay into the heart part of it. How do I feel when I'm with this person? Can I speak my truth when I'm with this person? And if you feel that you can't, I wouldn't give up on it. I would go to them and say, gosh, sometimes when we get together and we start having these conversations, I feel like I clam up and I don't want to, right? That makes you vulnerable. That makes them go, oh gosh, okay, you want to have a deeper conversation. So can you speak your truth? If you do speak your truth and you feel like you're not being heard, or you're being shut down, I think those are some real, I would say, strong orange flags, right? You want to just be with that and say, if they're not willing to really listen to me, or they're not in a place where they can listen to me, then it might be that they're just not in the right space, headspace for you. Hopefully that's helpful. If not, please write it in the comments if you're with us live, or you have it's not your question and you also have a similar situation. I'm always happy to add on to these. Okay, let's go on to the next question. And if there's anyone from our live studio audience that wants to submit a question, we can do that too. Okay, we've got one coming forward, and I'm going to read it from a card so that we remain confidential here. Okay, I recently started dating someone that I'm very excited to be with. He lost a young adult child a few years back and is still struggling. Sometimes he goes dark, and it makes it hard for me to know how to handle this. Because our relationship is still new, I'm wondering if you have any advice on how I can best support him. Well, first of all, I want to say I think this is a really beautiful opportunity. I know it's not necessarily an easy opportunity, but it's beautiful because he's in a very vulnerable space. And when our loved ones are there, their hearts are really soft, and their hearts are also really, they can be really open. And then I think what I'm hearing you say is that then they close up. So there's that, like, ooh, that tightness that comes in because they're worried that they don't want to experience that heartache and that heartbreak. And oftentimes romantic love, romantic interest can accelerate that same fear of loss, because we feel so good when it comes to romantic connection with someone, and our oxytocin levels rise and all these beautiful things happen, and magic comes into our life, and the last thing we want to do is lose it again. And so one thing that comes to mind to share is for you to always remember and to embody this in a way that you can just project this back to them, is that love is never lost, and that you are in their life to show them that unconditional love, like within you, that can just just go out to them unconditionally. And the more you just think about that and not necessarily get into like the nuances of what's happened for them, which doesn't mean that you're not honoring that, because you are. You're very much honoring like how they're feeling about it. But I think the more you show up in your authentic self and your love, you're just going to keep softening their heart and softening their heart. And they're going to begin trusting you more and more and more. And when you come from that really genuine place that I know that you are, because you asked the question, that you care that much, that you really want to be there for them. You don't want to gloss over it. You don't want to make a big deal out of it. And yet you're not really sure, like, where do I get in on this? So what comes to me to say is have that touch base. Like almost ask exactly the same question that you asked here, which is, gosh, I just recognize that, you've had such a tremendous loss in your life. And maybe you've already said this. How can I best support you? Like, do you want me to bring things up at times, or do you just want me to wait until you're ready to talk about things? Because I oftentimes things, if this is true for you, oftentimes things come to mind and I'm like, oh gosh, I want to ask him about this. But I don't know, is it going to just trigger something? Is it going to not make you feel good? Um, Share with me, like, what would be the best approach? If something pops into my mind, are you comfortable if I asked you, or would you rather that I just wait until things come forward? And I think just by being like um, that genuine with him, he's really going to feel your deep love, and he's going to give, hopefully, the best answer he can, which is either, yeah, just say what's on your mind when it comes, or yeah, no, I'd rather not talk about it. Let me bring it up when it surfaces for me. But again, I just keep coming back. I keep getting just being that anchor of light and love for him, and showing him that safety, that he's not going to lose your love. And as you two come together on a deeper, more intimate level, I think that you're going to be able to show him that love is never lost. And even if at some point the two of you, and I'm not predicting this, I'm just saying, if for some reason the two of you decided to not be in a relationship, the transformation that you will provide to him by experiencing the depth of your love and your light, and like the way that you approach him, is going to speak volumes, and it's going to do that heart opening that he really, really needs. So hopefully it'll just deepen. If you're meant to be, that destiny will, take its hand, and you'll walk into the sunset together. And if it's not, it means that you are together at this really, really important time in both of your lives, and you're getting something out of it too, because you're having to speak your truth. You're having to get into difficult conversations, and you're also having to deal with your own emotions of what it would feel like if this were your child that passed. And so there's also that element, right? That sometimes we want to avoid these conversations with people because we don't want to think about how it would make us feel. And so it's just a beautiful opportunity, difficult one, I get, but a beautiful opportunity to really, really, I think, build a foundation that's going to be really important in the future. Hopefully that's helpful. If there's anything more, though, I'm happy to, if you want to write down anything more, if there's something more I can share on that, or is that kind of get to the core of it and how helpful? Okay, great. Okay, so we'll keep going here. There's a couple of other pre-submitted ones. I really value my friendship, but sometimes I feel like we get caught up in surface level topics and miss out on the opportunity to connect more deeply. How can I encourage more meaningful conversations that go beyond the the usual small talk and help build deeper, more genuine friendships? Are there questions or approaches that can naturally lead to these types of connections without feeling forced or too heavy? Like, a lot of things are just coming in right now. Um, I just had talked about in the intro about my fireside chats, and I feel so grateful for the inspiration for that to happen, because it brought people together that we didn't have to deal with background noise, external environment stuff. We weren't in a restaurant. We didn't have to worry about people ordering drinks. And so if you have that opportunity where you can invite people into a sacred space, it doesn't have to be a group of people. It doesn't have to be a fire. It can just be that you really think about what would be the best space to actually have conversations with people. And maybe it is at home and you're making them coffee or you're making them tea or something. And then you have a little bit more intimacy. And I don't mean, like sexual intimacy, of course. I just mean like intimacy in like the vulnerable topics you can get into. Because sometimes if we're out and about and we're at a coffee shop and it's loud or there's people sitting right next to us, we don't want to share. We don't want to share like our most deepest concerns or our vulnerable points. So the atmosphere is incredibly important to generate a safe space for both parties. So that would be the number one thing that comes to mind. Number two, if you just don't have that ability and you're just happy to be out and about, but you just want to find a way to like get deeper faster, um, number one about that is monitor your mind, monitor the conversation, and specifically, what am I talking about? Am I talking about other people? Because how easy is it sometimes to be like, oh, well, how's so and so, or oh, did you see what happened to so and so? Like to me, all of those conversations, like sometimes it's nice to get updates on people. So I'm not saying you can't do that, but if you want to dive deep, how are you? How's your heart? Like, what's heavy on your heart today? What's catapulting your heart today? How do you feel? Really, how do you feel about X, Y, or Z? And so when you start to go right to the heart, as opposed to the evaluation center of the mind or the judgment place of the mind, where you're asking someone's opinion, like, what do you think about this? It's still okay. But if you can get them to talk about how they feel as opposed to how they think, you're going to find your conversation changes exponentially. And you're going to get into those deeper conversations. And because you've monitored yourself, like, am I talking about me or am I talking about somebody else? Am I talking about, gosh, this is what I struggled with this morning. I got up and X, Y, or Z thoughts were circulating in my head and I just couldn't get beyond it. Has that ever happened to you? Then you're talking about you. Then you're talking about what's heavy for you today. What are you struggling with? Or, hey, you know what? I woke up today and like the most miraculous thing happened. And I just want to share it with you because it means X, Y, and Z to me. It catapulted my whole idea about what's going to happen today or what's going to happen with my business or what's going to happen in my job. So get back to you and what's happening for you. And I think you're going to find that other people are going to start talking about themselves. And then we're going to start to realize too, oh gosh, I was really talking about a lot of other people more than I was talking about myself. And I'm not saying that's for you necessarily, the person that asked the question. I'm just saying in the collective, that's just how we are a lot of times, monkey see, monkey do. And there's just a lot of observation of other people. And let's just move a little bit away from that. And let's move into what's my heart saying and sharing it with others. Okay, hopefully that's helpful. If not, please feel free to write more in the comments. I'm happy to elaborate on that as well. Okay, let's jump to another question here that was submitted. I've recently, no, whoops. Okay, hold on. With Thanksgiving coming up, I'd like to connect more deeply with family. What do you recommend? I think you can do exactly what I just said on the last question, actually, which is go into what's happening for you. And depending upon the family member, because sometimes people haven't earned our vulnerability in our family system because we have a long history with them. And sometimes they're not a safe place. So evaluate from the heart, not from the mind. Is this family member someone that is worth my vulnerability? And I don't mean worth my vulnerability from a negative standpoint. I mean, like, hey, if I soften my heart, is this person a safe person that's not going to rip it apart or use it against me later? And when you come at it with this awareness, then I think what happens is there's just a different energy about how you navigate, because then you don't close your heart either. Because you're like, okay, I have awareness. I don't want to be that vulnerable with this person because it's not a safe space. Let me find something else that's a little less vulnerable, but still, coming from my heart. And that way you can see, can I activate them? Are they willing to share something with me because now I've shared something with them? That's a way that you're going to find where they're at. Now, also remember that if you're watching the show, I know that you are an awakening wonder in the world and you're on a spiritual path of some sort. And oftentimes our family members are not on that same ascension journey. They're not in the same space that we are. And that's totally fine because they're family, they're here to give us all of the programs that were instilled when we were young and to be the mirror to trigger us about all the shit that we, have been trying to deal with. And so go into the holidays with curiosity. Like, oh gosh, I wonder what my sister's going to do this year, or I wonder what my brother's going to say. But curiously, not from like a place of the old war wounds and scars of like, oh gosh, the last 5 years, so and so did this to me, and I don't want that to happen again. No, not from that energy, from an awareness energy of, okay, spirit, higher self, show me what the programs are. Show me a little bit about myself in the reflection of my brother, my sister, because that's still a part of you. If they're showing you something you don't like, there's still something in there for you to really dig into and be like, oh, okay, do I want to work on that? Do I want to find a way to let go of those beliefs and those thought systems and also honor where they're at? It doesn't mean you agree with where they're at. It's a huge difference. Honor where they're at and not with a look of disappointment. This isn't like, oh gosh, you're so asleep. You have no idea what's going on in the world. No, it's not like that. It's where you're really just looking at them with love and light. And you're just like, and I just want to share my love and light with you. And if I can't do it in words, because we're not going to see things in the same way when it's filtered through the mind, I'm just going to show you through my heart. Just feel it in your heart and emanate it out to them, even at times when you're at odds, maybe with that person. Find a way, maybe it's that morning before you go to the Thanksgiving, before you go to the holiday, whatever your holiday is, and you sit in your meditation and you feel that person that you have some discord with, or that you're anticipating the possibility of maybe just some not so nice feelings, and imagine them sitting right in front of you. And sometimes this is even fun to just fill out the imagination a little bit and get 2 teacups and have that conversation with their soul on a different level, and find a place in your soul that you can bring it into your heart, your physical body, and see that love and light that you have, and come up with 3 things that you love about that person, or 3 things that you've already learned from that person, so that you can be in a state of gratitude. And then when you get in the situation, just go back to your teacup and recognize, oh, okay, I'm just getting a little triggered. It's totally fine. I'm just experiencing this old program. Thank you for bringing it forward, and let it go. And that's really the enlightenment journey, is to be able to be in front of our fellow brothers and sisters, whether they're, biological or spiritual brothers and sisters, to see what it is that we've called them in to help us with in our growth and our ascension. So look at it as fun. Even when there's going to be discord, just watch it as it's a sitcom. I mean, that's why I think Seinfeld did so well, right? Because everybody laughed at like the stupid, crazy stuff that drives families nuts, friends nuts, society nuts, right? Things that happen out in the real world. So we got to laugh about it. I think that's going to help you out quite a bit. All right, let's go on to the next question. I think we've got another one coming maybe from the studio audience, and then we'll keep moving along. Okay, great, thanks. I recently came back from a spiritual pilgrimage. It was very enlightening and taught me everything I need to know. However, towards the end of my journey, I realized that everything it taught me, I already knew. Somehow I had just forgotten during the course chaos of life. How do I keep incorporating those things in my life and not get caught up in the chaos again? Like material things, conforming to who people want me to be instead of who I am, keeping the dust off my mirror. Yeah, I love that. The awakening journey, that's all it is waking up and remembering. So we already have everything within. And I think it's so wonderful that this experience happened where you went out there, had an experience, and then realized, oh, wait, it was always inside. And I just like had this remembrance of who I really am. And you also came back saying, and now I just want to embody it. And so the question, let's see here, did I get the actual question? Yeah, how do I keep incorporating these things in my life and not get caught up in the chaos? again. And it's a real question, because when we come back to the external environment that we've created, our home, our family, our friends, where we live, we come back into the vibration of all of the thought constructs and societal norms that are here, not there. So what happened when you went on the pilgrimage is you had this incredible experience with Mother Nature, this incredible experience with different cultures, and the matrix of energy that you experience in your homeland, and all of the things that make up who you are there, were not with you there. They were with you in your mind, but they weren't with you, bombarding you in your external reality. So you got that break, you got that release. And then when you got the release, you were like, oh gosh, okay, now I can just go back to who I really am. And so now when you come back to your environment, you have to start thinking, okay, are there changes that I want to make in my environment? And sometimes you don't have to make any physical changes. It's just the lens of which you see things in your physical environment that you want to change. Maybe it's that you want to meet people in your community that remind you of the people that you met on the pilgrimage. Okay, where do I find those people? And you start thinking, oh, I don't know, maybe it's a yoga class, maybe it's a meditation class, maybe it's a meetup. I don't know, it's just coming, but a meetup, like literally a meetup group that has done that same pilgrimage. And maybe you get, or maybe you create your own. Maybe you create, I know I'm not a big fan of like some of the meetup stuff online, but what if you did a meetup and you said, for people who have done this exact pilgrimage, I would love to know, and I'd love to share stories, and I'd love to have every, I don't know, Monday night that we do a share, just to keep all of what we experienced real in our life. And because you have that shared interest, right? You have that shared experience. And wouldn't that be fun? I mean, it doesn't even have to be like right in your physical area. It could be like that you put together a group, or maybe there's already a group on Facebook or whatever, and you can just meet other people that had that experience. So then you've changed an element of your friend group. I'm not saying you've switched out all your friends. I'm just saying you've incorporated new people that have had that same experience. Look around your place. Are there things you want to just eliminate that clutter your life? Um, Back to the original story of the gentleman at my fireside chat who was from South Sudan. He said when he came to the United States, he had a lot of really incredible experiences because he came from extreme poverty and a place where, yeah, there wasn't these systems in place. And so when he came into the systems, he's like, I realized that I actually didn't have any stress in my life in South Sudan. The only thing that I thought about was, where is my next meal going to come from? But he said, I wasn't stressed about things. Then I got here and I realized there was all of this push and pull and tugging of my attention and my energy and stress. And he's like, yeah, the more things you guys get, he kind of was, well, I don't know if these were his exact words, but the more things you guys get, the more complicated it is. So I think why I'm bringing that story forward is to simplify our lives. Maybe it's, yeah, just releasing some of the things that we think we need to have and genuinely doing it. It can be as simple as, and I'm not saying this is for you, it's probably more for me than anybody, but clearing your desk completely so that you just have white space, and that you're just like, oh yes, I just, by virtue of having my desk really clean. And again, this is more for me than anyone, but the desk part, but I want to use it as an analogy because you can do it with whatever, that you just let the light come in and you just let the complexities of everything shy away. When you're on your computer, how many tabs do you have open? How many documents do you have up? Simplifying our lives and just having a really singular focus. Because when you were on the pilgrimage, you were probably focused on one thing, and that was walking and observing things that were happening around you. You weren't, well, I suppose in the beginning you were thinking about bills or, people you needed to contact or things you didn't get done or whatever. But once that mind quieted, then you were able to just be in that space of sort of nothingness and everything all at the same time. And so bringing that back here, and sometimes, yeah, Amazon's not going to like me for saying this, but getting rid of all the subscriptions, to all of the things and all of the products and all of the shows and things that we need, if it resonates for you. Again, some of this is just for the collective. We get so locked into our routines because our routines help us feel comfortable. And when we go on these pilgrimages, It's to get us out of our comfort zone and to shift our perspective, which it did so eloquently and gracefully for you. So now it's like, let me just keep shifting. Let me just keep doing the things that make my life a little uncomfortable. Not that you feel bad, but just uncomfortable because it tweaks the reality of what you're living in right here in this space. Maybe it's shuffling something around in your house, moving something that shifts the energy, that just kind of, yeah, it gets you to think about things differently. Maybe it reminds you of something. Maybe there's a crystal, why is this coming? I don't know, a crystal lamp that you want to have that brings a glow, that brings a reminder of the light within, something that says, yes, yes, that's what's most important to me, is to continue to do things that glow my heart. And when you sit down at the beginning of the day, just saying, okay, what's my list? You can Stephen Covey this, like, what are my to-do lists? And then wait, let me put the things that make my heart glow on the top as opposed to on the bottom, because that's what's going to catapult you through the day, is feeling that connection to source that you did on the pilgrimage. And when you feel that connection, that's what fuels us. And what takes away our energy is when we feel like we're doing, and we're trying to get through a list, as opposed to, no, Spirit, take me on this day. Take me on this day. I do have things that I have to accomplish in this 3D realm, but take me on this day and work through me in my heart, not my mind, because our mind is so strong, and we're taught and we're rewarded every day for thinking through everything and getting things done. And sometimes, again, back to that waiting analogy, it's about the being, where everything can happen in a way that's effortless and with ease and grace. And that's what happened on the pilgrimage, is everything was happening with ease and grace, because everything was foreign and different, and you were just in a totally different paradigm and construct. So hopefully that's helpful to give some pointers and some tips. But I think it is just shaping your external environment and making some changes and getting rid of some habits that you're like, I don't really need those habits, and creating some new habits that come, and some new reminders in your life. Maybe it's a necklace. Maybe it's, yeah, maybe it's a pair of shoes that remind you of, like, the pain in your feet, and then you have the gratitude for not having the pain. And sometimes those simple shifters just get you back into, yeah, that state of gratitude and open-heartedness, and jolt you out of the rat race of what we're taught to be a part of, here on this earth plane. Okay, helpful? Okay, great. Okay, I feel like we've got a couple. I know we're still got a little bit of time. Okay, hang on. Okay, I just want to make sure that I didn't. Here's another question. My son is a teenager and he's coming into his own. I want to support him by guiding him directionally. However, he seems to think this is controlling or suffocating. What's the right balance? The words that come is let go. We instill in children our morals, ethics, values in the first 5 to 7 years. That's where you did the heavy lifting, the heavy work, and probably at times, maybe you did things that weren't exactly the programs you wanted to instill. But you still had that soul contract for that to be the case, and for them to work out all of these things in their own life. So they are going to make mistakes. I know you want to be directional, and yet there is just, share with me what it is that you want to do, my dear son, and okay, right? And let them make the mistakes. Support every decision that they want to make, and when they stumble, that's where they'll come back to you. They'll need you, whether they need you for the money or, the food or whatever, they're going to come back to you. And it's kind of like, I get this image of, like, that wise grandmother that sits in her rocking chair and waits for the children to come to them. Because when they come to you, they are much more open to hearing your wisdom, as opposed to you going to them, you trying to preempt, you trying to give them direction. They don't want your direction. It's like, I know it's hard, but they don't, because they are trying to find their own and they want that independence, especially boys and their moms. I think it's a tough dynamic. I've not had my own children. I've watched it. I can feel it. I can see it, that it's a letting go process from the day that they're born. It was letting go when you let them take their first step. It was letting go when they stopped breastfeeding. It was, letting go just constantly. It was letting go when they went to, preschool, and then they went to kindergarten, and all of these things were letting go when they graduate from high school. It's all a letting go process. And you've done the work. I think maybe the main message is anchor in that you've done the work already. You've done the guidance, you've done the direction, you've done it. And the only thing you need to keep doing is be that light for them. Meaning, if you told them, don't eat candy, I'm just making up a silly one, don't eat candy, and then you go eat candy, then you're not giving the right message. You're not giving the right direction. So be consistent with what you want them to do, and you do that. You show them, hey, organic food is great. I'm going to eat organic food. And when they don't want to eat organic food, we can't judge them for that, but we can just keep eating organic food and showing them that I feel healthy, I feel great, and here's what I think about this. Here's how I feel about this. When I eat well, I feel this. So it's, talk about how you feel and let them make up their own decisions about what they want to do. And they'll figure it out when they go and, it's Halloween just happened and they do a candy mad dash and they eat all that sugar and they feel like crap. I mean, it starts to sink in. It takes a long time, but it'll sink in, and they have to have those experiences for themselves. So I get that you want to be directional. I think the guidance is in just letting go and maybe laughing a little bit more, and just knowing that you've done the work already. Hopefully that's helpful. If not, I'm always happy to share more. And if you want to schedule a one-on-one, we can go deeper into maybe more issues or certain things or aspects that you feel like you've just not been able to work with your son on. So great questions. All right. I feel like I missed a question here though. So just give me a second, because sometimes I do that. I get excited about all the other ones. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. So I think I got that one. All right. Any other questions from the live studio audience? Anything that's coming for? It's okay. We don't have to always have questions from live studio audience. If there's anyone on live that wants to submit a question, please do so. And if not, you can always do it on replay. So whether you're here with us live or on replay, share with us your state of the heart. I'd love to see your heart in the comments below. And each week, Sundays, 11:11, we'll be doing the show, and it's on the road this month. So stay tuned. Next week, it's going to be coming from Singapore, and that will be an exciting adventure. To be back in my home that I had for 7.5 years, being in Asia. So I'm excited about that. And I look forward to seeing you then. And in the meantime, please go to bethbell.me, fill out your state of the heart assessment. You'll find out where your heart is, if it's blocked, broken, healing, or whole, and you'll get some tips and tools that go along with it. You can also find the Awakening and Healing Handbook on bethbell.me. That is filled with a plethora of modalities and, again, tips, tools, techniques to help you on the awakening process, and some really wonderful recommendations for healers and places that you can go and things that you can do to help you and assist you on your awakening journey. I look forward to seeing you again next week. And again, you can always schedule a one-on-one. You can also sign up for spiritual advising. It's a monthly program, and I look forward to hearing from you on that. So we'll see you next week from Singapore. All right. Until then, wishing you much bliss and love on the journey. Namaste.